Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP suspects their wife of having an emotional affair and is determined to reconcile. One day, they found their wife's Apple Watch, which had been missing for months, and discovered messages on it suggesting that their wife sees them as an ex and not a reconciliation partner. The messages also reveal an emotional connection with someone else. Now let's get into the story. I recently wrote a post on our divorce about how my new dog had serendipitously given me some information about my wife's emotional affair. I had been suspecting that something was up for a while, and when she gaslighted me and suddenly threw me to the side, I felt something. Amongst the sea of confusion, pain, sadness, and doubt was suspicion. I don't like to admit it, but it has always been my goal to reconcile with my wayward spouse, to give her space and respect, and privacy. But today I broke that. I saw a message from a number I did not recognize, and its preview was too hard to ignore. Now for the story. We recently got a puppy. We, as in my immediate family, my wife and I moved in with my parents as she suggested we could live there and save money for us. It was a good idea and very forward-thinking on her part. I really didn't want to move, but I did it because she was my teammate and I felt like I could overcome it with her by my side. Our family dog passed away shortly after the wayward spouse and I moved in. Fast forward to now and we finally got a puppy. No clue where wayward spouse is, as she is mostly ignoring me. The puppy is honestly really annoying and her teething makes her so chewy. Yesterday I hit the gym late. I had recently seen my therapist and a lawyer for a consultation that day, and it had me feeling anxious and depressed. When I returned in the late afternoon, I came home to see my wife's Apple Watch on the kitchen counter charging. My first thought was that she must be here, but she was not. So where did it come from? My grandmother came out with the dog and explained that the dog ran into my open bedroom and saw the watch. She carried it back to the living room where she chewed on it till my grandmother found her the gummy sports strap on. An Apple Watch does look pretty sweet if you're teething. She took the watch and charged it, thinking it was my mother's. They have the same color and model watch. When I got home, the watch was alive. I was surprised as this thing had been missing for months and I didn't find it till she left me and I moved rooms. I threw it in a corner of the room on a pile of the wayward spouse's mail and clothes. The dumb pup came in and grabbed it as it was so easy to reach. As I walked back to my bedroom, the notifications came in. The first text I saw was from a number I didn't recognize. It said, "Stockpile smiling for you, baby." Between my wife going no contact after suggesting that she wanted to work on our marriage, my suspicions, and what this message said, it was very hard to not look. I opened it up and started reading messages and conversations were happening in real time. This wasn't her affair partner, but they talked about me. I saw her talk about me in ways that killed me. Her newfound online friends took her side and they all think I'm a controlling loser. The worst part is I suggested and recommended she hang with some new folks in this video game because I didn't want her to feel trapped with me. She's not super social, so I always try to get her to foster friendships. When she talks about me to these people, she refers to me as her ex. This entire time I have been silently standing for my marriage, always referring to her as my wife. I was gutted. So much for a serious attempt at working on our marriage. After basically finding out that my wife sees me as her ex and not her reconciliation partner, I tried to sleep but couldn't. Waves of anxiety and pain washed over me in long successive crashes. I started to cry and that's when the late-night text from him came in. How much worse can it get? So I read them. It showed a guy who obviously had feelings for her, delegating care and calling her pet names like baby or babe. I've seen them talk late into the night. She's been overprotective of her phone lately and our bedroom has been dead, so this made sense. I have no clue if things have gotten physical with them, but at this point, it doesn't matter. They care about her and approach her in a way that it did. It looks just like how we looked when we first started. So much of what I thought I knew was lost. So much time wasted. 6+ years, ups, downs, and as much love as I could muster and nothing to show for it. Those who are currently in it had. Did you deal on the first day? After a month of being too stupid to see the light, I feel like I have jumped back to square one. Day 1. What were your first few days like? Did you confront or did you wait? Today's second story. In this story, in July 2020, OP's relationship with their spouse began to deteriorate due to various issues, including lack of intimacy and communication problems. In September, they had a major fight, leading him to stay with their brother for a night. Upon returning, they learned that their spouse had cheated on them. Despite the shock, he initially forgave their spouse but later decided to leave after multiple vague responses about the affair. Now let's get into the story. I tried posting this earlier as an explanation of what went down when everything first began, as some people have asked how this all started and how I ended up where I am now. This is not recent, but started back in July of last year. I'm far removed from all of this and grateful for all the advice and encouragement. Alright, so as far as things went, it all began rolling downhill in July of 2020. June was great. We had gone on a little getaway with our son and his friend. They hung out, we had fun together and the sex was good. July came around and we were having issues, spats over stupid little things. Her not interested in intimacy. I'd be interested in her day, but she would show no interest in mine. Extended times in the bathroom as well as baths all of the time. And yet she wanted to complain that we didn't spend time together. July passed like this. August got more strained and she even tried to act like things were all right. She showed me lingerie and said it was going to be for my birthday. My birthday came around and she bought me a couple of records, but nothing. I had a long day at work, and she did, too, supposedly. So we just ended up cooking and chilling together. I figured it was a weekday, so it was whatever. She offered 6, but she didn't really seem there. Eventually, in September, we had a few big fights, one of which she asked to have some time to herself. I thought this was suspect and I was distraught as I felt our marriage was crumbling. I was right. I took the dogs and left to stay with my brother and family for the night. The next day, I came home in the afternoon. She had said she wanted to go out with her friends before I got there. And I never stopped her from being with her friends. I got home around 12. She got home at 6. I saw her and told her I was happy to see her. She mumbled the month was terrible and that week was especially so. She wasn't kissing me. She was rude and snide and straight up cruel. I was asking her to talk to me, to tell me what was going on. I noticed things weren't right, and I wanted us to be okay. An acquaintance, now a really good friend, saw me at work and showed concern. I explained to him how I loved my wife. We had been together for 8.5 years and married for 1.5 years at that point, and I didn't know what to do. He recommended marriage counseling and said he had been through something like this. He suggested I get the 5 love languages and another I can't think of at the moment. I read up immediately. I came to the realization that I had been prioritizing my work. I owned my own business with my brother because we had been overloaded since COVID and business had been booming, but nevertheless, I never stopped trying to love her or be intimate in conversations and physically. But she had dropped off the very same day I came home. She was sick, so I took care of her the next morning. As she was getting ready, I calmly and lovingly asked if we could talk a bit before she left. I told her everything I had learned from the book. I read the whole damn thing the night before and that I had felt that I had been inattentive, that I loved her, and that we should go to marriage counseling and try to fix what we have because we love each other and we have our son. Something I said must have triggered something in her because she broke down crying and began to repeat that I was going to hate her eventually after telling her to just be honest with me. She admitted that she had cheated on me the past weekend when she said she was going to be with her friends. I was in shock, blown away. But I loved my wife, I loved my marriage and I loved my son. So like a fool, I told her that it was okay and that I could forgive her, but that she had to completely come clean about all of it. She then clammed up. No names, no information. Just that she had been talking to the affair partner since July and carried on an emotional affair until that day in September. How could I believe her? I didn't. I told her that she had made a joke of our marriage and our vows. This was on a Thursday. I tried to have a discussion with her that night, but she refused and gave me little. She said she had never agreed to talk about things, but that she had told the affair partner that she had told me about them. Friday rolled around and it was the same. I was dry heaving, I hadn't slept and I felt crappy, angry, and destroyed inside. Eventually, Saturday came and my brother, having seen the wreck that I was, told me to stay home and handle what was going on. She got up, went to work out, and all the while I was a wreck. I called my father, who had been the cheater in his marriage. But my mother and him worked it out and have had a fantastic marriage for 38 years now. I asked him for advice. He told me it wasn't a mistake. She knew exactly what she was doing and she needed to make a choice. If she didn't, then that would tell me everything I needed to know. I got myself together because I was a wreck. I cleaned the house and made sure my son was all taken care of. Then I went down to our apartment gym and told her that she needed to come and talk to me once she was done. Half an hour later she came up and I calmly told her that she needed to choose our family and our marriage or the affair partner. I don't know is all I got. And she asked for a little time. I agreed on the basis that she neither contacted nor saw him. She agreed and went running for 2 hours. I could see where she was on an app. She came back, finally noticed that I had cleaned the apartment, and cried. I asked her what she had chosen and again it was a slew of I don't knows. I pressed and she said it was over. I said okay, and although I was crying I grabbed a duffel bag and filled it with some clothing. She was crying because I was actually leaving. I kissed my son and told him that I was going to stay at his uncle's for a while. He was distracted by video games and he was okay. I told her I would be back in the morning for the rest of my stuff and I bailed the next morning. I got there at like 6 o'clock. I immediately grabbed garbage bags and walked into our bedroom and into the bathroom and closet and started loading everything that was mine into them. She sat up in bed with tears and just watched me. She asked what I was doing and I told her that she had made her decision and she started sobbing. My heart was broken, but I'd also wanted my wife again. Like a fool I got into bed with her and held her and kissed her for half an hour. I told her it didn't have to be this way but that she had to come clean. Silence. So I was furious and I yelled at her saying that all of this was for nothing. I bagged my shit up and told her that my father and brother were at the cafe 5 minutes away waiting for my call to come and help me get the heavy stuff. By this time it was 11 in the morning and I had bagged everything. She asked what we would tell our son. I went and woke him up and gave him a sham of an excuse about communication breaking down. She said she didn't want to see my family but not to blame her because she was ashamed. She took our son to go shopping and I could tell he was a little messed up and confused. I called my dad and brother and they came over. We grabbed my 3 TVs, all of the electronics that I had gotten to make our place smart. Of course, I left my son all of his cool stuff. I love him and none of this was his fault. And before I left she texted me not to go and to wait for her and our son. I waited. The place looked like it had been robbed. She walked in and she told me not to go and that our son had knocked over a display in anger and said he wished that we could still be a family. I gave her a face that said nothing good and then I told her that of course he does and it was what I wanted. But what the hell did she want? Again with the I don't knows. I said that there wasn't any point for me to stay. I made her tell her parents because they would be furious if they had to find out from our son. The week coming up was the first week of October and I tried to keep our son on a schedule. I showed up to take him to school and make him breakfast, but I was also taking him to his grandparents' house. Some mornings when I had to show up early at work they asked what was going on and I dumped everything on them. I told them I wanted us to fix things but that she was sticking to her dumb I don't knows. Today's third story. In this story, a married couple of 10 years faced a crisis when the husband discovered his wife had contracted herpes during a vacation with her sister. Suspicious of her secretive behavior, he found a diagnosis in her car. Fearful for his own health, he tested negative. Seeking answers, he exposed her diagnosis to her colleagues through email. Her sister admitted she wasn't with her the whole time. Confronted, the wife apologized but faced public backlash at work, leading to her quitting. The husband decided to divorce her, feeling betrayed. The sister remained supportive, while the husband wished his wife would disclose her diagnosis and infidelity to others. Now let's get into the story. My wife and I were married for 10 years. I was her first and I thought only sexual partner. We married at 22 years old and when the story I'm about to tell you took place we were 32. I was told she went on a vacation with her sister. But throughout the week she was gone. Her responses became weird and less frequent. I was already worried by the time she got back and my fears were only she said she didn't feel well and this was right before COVID reached the US. So she made a doctor's appointment after that one. She went to a second one but wouldn't tell me what was going on. I was in the dark and cared about my wife. I wanted answers, so I decided to search her car for appointment summaries or anything that might give me some clues. In her car, I found an open STD test and a visit summary from her doctor that said she tested positive for herpes. I started shaking and didn't want to believe it. I sat in her car for a while, staring at the trees around me. I obviously couldn't sleep with my wife again. Then I got scared. I already had it. I went to stay with my mom for a few days while I waited for my own test results. My wife barely noticed my absence because she was dealing with her own problems. Thank God my test results were clean. She didn't get it from me or give it to me. Now I could address the issue at hand. My wife had to face reality. I was already irritated that she didn't tell me anything about it. I had lots of questions, but they didn't really need answering. I didn't really need to know how she got herpes, only that she did while she was on vacation with her sister. Her sister in the same office. Which gave me an idea. I received an email invite to a work party, and attached to that email were all the emails of her coworkers and bosses. I emailed everyone a picture of my wife's diagnosis with a text that said my wife brought home a present from vacation. The response. But before my wife realized what I did, her sister called me. She asked what was going on, and I told her all about it. She admitted that she wasn't with my wife the whole time they were gone. At first, she thought I was being really unfair by sharing my wife's private issue with her work crew. But after I vented to her about it and brought up the impending divorce, she sided with me. Just then, my wife came outside and banged on the car window. She looked furious and terrified. She screamed and cried inaudible words. I got out of the car and she started hitting me, but stopped when I told her she cheated on me. She couldn't keep it together. She was overwhelmed and probably hadn't even let the reality of her STD or infidelity sink in. I told her she cheated on me while on vacation and got herpes. She betrayed me, and now I would never sleep with her again. She cried breathlessly, tried saying sorry, tried saying she used protection, but none of it mattered, and I think she knew that. She went back inside the house defeated. After I told her to pack her stuff, her sister came over because she was on the phone for some of our confrontations. She helped her pack and calmed her down by talking about the future she could have. All the motivation left her when she tried to go to work. She received so much backlash and shame for what she did to me. Whether it was to her face or notes left on her desk, she was insulted, called out, and slandered. She only worked for one day after vacation before quitting. Her sister's been really quiet, and as far as I know, she still lives with her. It wouldn't surprise me if she quit dating for a while or even had trouble forgiving herself. I know I lucked out and dodged by doing my own investigation and separating myself from her while I figured out what I needed to know. I hope she uses protection and tells people about her diagnosis and cheating habits.